Here we go. Okay. So I didn't have anything written up, but we've been married for 46 years, so I think we kind of know one another a little bit. My name is Joe Spreitzer. That's Pat Spreitzer. Pat has been a nurse for 43 years, and we've been up here in the Clifton Park Half Moon area for about 35 years, I think. And Pat has her Bachelor of Science in Nursing from Long Island University in Brooklyn. She's worked up here at St. Peter's Hospital. She originally worked at NYU Medical Center in Manhattan. The last 17 years of her career, she worked with community hospice out of St. Peter's. And this is kind of, she's retired now for 5 years, 6 years. But I think it'll come back quickly to her when she does this, and she's really excited about doing this. I know she's been kind of edgy the last couple of days, so I kind of stayed away from her. But anyway, here's our presenter for this evening, Pat Spreitzer.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So just so that you know, this is, go ahead. It's Spreitzer, S-P-R-E-I-T-Z-E-R. It sounds like spritzer with an E-I. I know, it's not I-E. I'll do it for you later, no problem. Just so that you know, this is not a hospice presentation. I have been very privileged to work for community hospice, and in my role as an outreach nurse, I became involved with two very wonderful educators and an organization that focused on advanced care planning. Not advanced, my husband was the communication person, so it's not a D, it's advanced, meaning going forward from right today, okay? And I am very passionate about this. I have seen a lot of situations that I hope you will benefit from when I speak with you. I will not violate any HIPAA regulations, please know. I usually use my own family circumstances, but at any rate, this will be really a chance for you all, I hope, to kind of like, and this is a Lenten thing, do an examination of conscience for yourself, because it's important for you to know yourself, but also to know about the process of advanced care planning. It is not a one and done deal. It is not, I did it and I'm finished. Because we change every day, our thoughts change every day, what we want changes every day, circumstances change us. So it's important that we keep this going. Obviously, we're having a little bit of technical difficulty, but I can do some things without that, especially the first, just so that you know, the what ifs, that title I sort of borrowed from a wonderful researcher. Her name is Dr. Joan Tenno, and she worked in Brown University, but she did a lot of work with the elderly, not only the dying, the frail, the infirm, people in nursing homes, talking to them about what their wishes would be if they could go back, what they would change, and things like that. So a lot of the information we have about advanced care planning is from her research, and she was wonderful. The other person I'll mention tonight is a Dr. Patricia Bomba, and Pat and I became very close friends. My maiden name happens to be Bopp. So she's Patricia Bomba, I was Patricia Bopp. We were both very much involved in advanced care planning, and she has actually created, I don't know if any of you have heard about it, the MOLST form, an M-O-L-S-T form, which is pink. We worked together on a committee to develop that for New York State Department of Health, and she is a wonderful human being, now retired and enjoying her family down south. So those are my two credits to give. The rest of this is sort of me. So I will read a little bit of, because this is kind of dry, the statistics that I put on here, but I do have one thing that's not on the presentation, but that is very interesting for, I think you will all enjoy. So here are some facts about advanced care planning. 60% of individuals, and some of these studies go back a little bit, 60% of individuals say it's extremely important that their family is not burdened by tough decisions. 56% have not communicated any of their wishes to those people. So we're kind of lacking a little bit there. 70% of people prefer to die at home. 70% of individuals who've been surveyed die in a hospital or in a facility. Now, not all of us have the ability to have our last days at home, but just the idea that people would wish that needs to be communicated. 80% would want to talk to their doctors about their healthcare situations. 70% have actually done it. 7%, I'm sorry. So that's a really small number of people who've actually talked to their doctors about this. And 82% say it's important to put their wishes in writing. 23% of individuals have actually done it. So that says something, and that's really what we're here tonight about, because the end result of everything we're going to do about the advanced care planning process is writing down your wishes and the healthcare proxy form, okay? So we're talking about the what ifs. Well, we had a known what if during COVID. We knew what was going on. So actually during COVID, 40% of the individuals that were surveyed by the University of Michigan said that they would complete a healthcare proxy and had the conversations during COVID. They could see what was happening all around them. For me, that was significant. I hope, and I will, where we are, would pray that you will never have to have a situation like that to force you to do something as simple as having the discussion. But obviously, if one thing good came from COVID, people had discussions saying, I'm looking all around me, seeing what's happening. We need to talk about this, okay? Okay, you can go on to the next one, John, if you will. Okay, so this is what I mentioned to you before. There is no D in it, it's advanced care planning. And what is it? It's a process. It's not a one and done deal. And it's planning for future medical care if and only if you cannot speak for yourself. If you are capable and competent, you're in the driver's seat. If you can't make your own medical decisions. It's a continual process and not merely the document. And what it is it's if you have a severe illness from which you will recover, or in the event that it is the beginning of the dying process. So it's not just, when people say hospice, it's not just when you get that terminal diagnosis. You may have a severe illness from which you are going to recover, but if for any point in that time you are not able to make those decisions for yourself, your healthcare proxy is the legally appointed person to speak for you. Okay. And that was Dr. Bomba, and this is her credit too. This is sort of just a little diagram showing that advanced care planning happens from the minute we are born until the minute we die. I know that's a little small, but if you follow the rainbow around, it's sort of things change as we age, from being healthy and active to being not so active, and maybe some little things come on, a little high blood pressure, a little arthritis, whatever, and as we age, it may be more significant frailties. And all the way around to death with dignity. But all throughout that cycle, what we should demand and what we are entitled to is compassion and supportive care all along the continuum. Okay, John, can you go to the next one? Okay, so this is the process and these are the steps. Examine, okay, which is really your values, your beliefs, and your hopes. And then the next one is learn. Learn all that you can about your personal health situation. Now, my caveat to that is when you're starting to learn, please, the internet has a plethora of information. You all know that. Please use reputable sites. Departments of Health, National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, the American Cancer Society, the Kidney Foundation. I know people blog and people love to read those things. They're not always the best of factual information. So if you are going to look on the internet for information, and sometimes it's good to do that just to develop questions, maybe to ask your own doctor, just please make sure you use reputable internet sites. The next one, which we're pretty much going to focus on tonight, I hope, is have the conversations. And I hope you will feel free, because it's not an easy thing, and you'll see I kind of poke fun at it a little bit, but it's important. It's really important to have the conversations. The next one is choose your surrogate decision maker. That means select the person you want to speak for you if you are not able to speak for yourself. And then the last section of the process is document that, completing a healthcare proxy document. And I do have copies of those, and I'll offer those later. So here we go. This is your examination of personal conscience. I'm not going to be giving you any answers. These are yours. These questions are yours. These questions are yours to think about now. They're to take with you. These are discussion starters. Some of them are easy. Some of them are really involved, okay? So, what matters most to you? Okay. Immediately. We're talking about values, beliefs, and hopes. People just answer, oh, my family, my loved one, this and that. What else matters most to you? You know, for some people at certain stages in their life, believe it or not, it's their financial future. You know, some people are so overwhelmed with that. Some people are worried about where they're living, you know. So what matters most to you in life? And that's a very personal thing. What brings you joy? What brings you joy? I will share this quickly. There was a gentleman that we had worked with, and he had this 1953 Chevy parked out in his farmyard. Well, what brought him joy was to sit on his porch and to look at that car every day. Rain, snow, sleet, or hail. You know what? We all might find that funny. That was joyous for him. You know, and you may all have one of those little things. I have a group of neighbors who, if I ask them, they'd all say, playing pickleball. You know, I don't do that, but they do, and that brings them great joy. What concerns you most? This more likely for people that I have dealt with, and I usually do these presentations in churches or at schools or at American Legion groups or whatever. What concerns you most? And most people will say, leaving my loved ones or burdening them. Some people will, in fact, say the financial burdens worry me most. You know, we all know in today's world, the what ifs are big question marks. You know, they're not easy things to answer. Being in a church here, and I'm kind of surprised that Father Pat isn't here. I'll have to talk to him about this. Are there cultural, religious, spiritual, or personal beliefs that might help you choose the care that you want? Later on, I do have some resources for you that talks about the Catholic religion and views on end-of-life care and advanced planning and choosing treatments and things like that. That may help you. For some people, that spiritual part is extremely important. For others, it plays a role, but not always the biggest role. What does a good day look like? What does a good day for you look like? You know, and the big joke is just getting up and getting out of my bed and seeing the sunshine or whatever. But really, you know, these are really deep, deep questions. And how would you define quality of life? And that's a huge one. What is quality of life for you? Having worked with a quadriplegic, a very different circumstance in someone who has never had use of arms or legs than in someone who has. You know, the quality of life, it's like, wow. You open your eyes and say, that's a very different concept than what I would think a quality of life would be. So these are some questions, and in some of the handouts that I give you, they're reviewed. So you don't have to write it all down, really. So the next one is how important. Again, more questions. And these are a little bit more clinical focused. How important is avoiding pain and suffering? For some people, having pain is just beyond conception. You know, it's really something they're frightened of, something they're afraid of. People need to know that about you. Other people will handle pain without too much difficulty, as long as they know they can remain alert and be able to discuss what they want to discuss with their loved ones and communicate back and forth with them. So that's being present, even if it means I might experience a degree of sort of like pain or discomfort and an inability to talk. My mom, for example, She was a trooper, little bitty lady, but when she was in deep pain, she said, "It's okay. I just want to be able to talk to my grandkids." And and at that point I was a hospice nurse, and I'm like, you really don't have to have this pain. I want to be able to talk to them. So that may be a trade-off for some people. However, if pain is something that you are literally uncomfortable with or even afraid of, there are methods to relieve pain that will keep you cognizant of what's going on around you. The next one is having family and close friends around me. I am a person who loves to have everybody sitting on my bed if they want to, whatever. There are people who, when they're uncomfortable or facing difficulties, just want to be alone. And that is to be respected. And it's a little difficult for those of us who prefer a group around you. Having my faith community leader or their representative involved in my care. I don't know if any of you have ever called on Father Pat, if you've had a loved one or someone that you know needing spiritual guidance. If that's important to you, you need to make that known. And you need to think about it. Do you want someone known? There was a period of time there when people went a little bit crazy with HIPAA, and it's like, no, you can't tell anybody in your church community that this one's in the hospital, whatever. So we had to develop a whole different language saying, if you go into the hospital and you want members of your faith community to know or to pray for you, please let us know. So we've expanded that a little bit. But if that is important to you, you need to think about it and make sure the people closest to you know. Being able to, or having the opportunity to say goodbye to family and friends. Again, this advanced care planning is not only when death and dying is imminent, it's serious illness. Because what if that serious illness doesn't resolve? Do you want to have people there close to you that you need to say goodbye to? There's no shame in saying, if this doesn't work out the way we anticipate it and I don't get better, I'm saying my goodbye to you now, and I'll be more than happy to say hello to you when it's all over. So you really need to think about that, those relations. You thought that was funny? Yeah, and we've seen people do that, especially on hospice. People are on and come off. Leaving a legacy. Tell your story and share those moments. And that's really important to some people. When I worked for hospice specifically, I was a liaison to the Veterans Administration. And let me tell you, if we have any vets here, thank you for your service, first of all. But some of those stories were locked deep, deep down inside and really just were angst to be shared. And it was very important, especially when they weren't sure what the next step in their illness or the trajectory was going to be, to have them heard. So if that story is important, maybe you can voice it, maybe you need to write it down. But if that's important to you, do that. Grab a hold of it and do it. Spend your final days at home. Again, this is when that diagnosis is there and you know it's final. Some people want to be at home. Other people would prefer not to be. I will be honest again, my mom died in our home. And for a while there, I think our daughters, when they walked into that room, were a little uneasy. It took time, but they embraced it after a while. Not everybody wants that. Not everybody would prefer that. And yet I will tell you, many times my mother said, it's okay if I need to go into a nursing home, that's fine. So, we talked about that all the time. Sometimes my kids say we talk about it too much, Mom, because you're a hospice nurse, that's enough. We don't want to talk about it all the time, yet I say we need to. And the other one is having support for your loved ones. I can say this 100% assuredly, that there is no one that I came in contact with during my years at hospice that were not more worried about the people they left behind than about themselves and where they were going. And you may have heard this often, someone say, whisper in their ear and say, we'll be okay, Mom, or we'll be fine, Dad. People really do worry, especially when they're facing a terminal diagnosis. There's somehow a peace that comes over many people. They know where they're going. They're more worried about the people they're leaving behind because they don't know what that future involves. Okay, you can go to the next one. Okay, learn. So this is, I already talked about this. Discuss your current health conditions with your provider. So if you have issues now, Go and talk to your doctors. Believe it or not, and for those of you who may know some of the clinical, somebody said they know billing, there is what they call a CPT code, which is a billing code, which allows physicians to get paid for a 30-minute advanced care planning discussion with each and every one of you. So you have a right to ask for that discussion with your doctors. They will get paid for that half hour, and it's exactly for that purpose. It's not for you to walk in and for them to say, oh, so you have a healthcare proxy? Yeah, goodbye. No, that's not what that is like, okay? And I know I may sound a little gruff, but I've been in the healthcare system a long time, and I don't want anyone not to take full advantage of what they have. What I would suggest is if you are going to call and make that appointment, you make sure you have some questions and answers there to make it a worthwhile discussion. And just say, I want my advanced care planning appointment. And you know that you are entitled to that, okay? And review there, as I said, your overall goals for care with your healthcare provider. Educate yourself about other life-sustaining treatments. Some of the resources that I have, and I apologize, I couldn't get them all together to get enough for all of you. Some of them have a cost to them, but when you look online, again, go to those specific sites. You really need to look at the best sites possible, but know what's entailed in those other options for your care. So I will tell you, for me, and I will use this clearly, I have diabetes. Some of you may have it, some of you may have the asthma, some of you may have high blood pressure. With diabetes, one of the things I know is that if I don't take care of myself and my blood sugar goes high, I have a much greater risk than the rest of you who don't have it of having kidney disease. Well, having kidney disease that goes uncontrolled means dialysis is probably in my future. Well, when I started nursing, it was only hemodialysis. Now there's peritoneal dialysis through the belly. So those are options already for me. But knowing that, I've spoken with my family, and it's sort of like, well, if that is in my future and that's where it comes, I'll do a trial period. And I would talk to my doctor about it. I will try dialysis for so long, and if it doesn't seem to be improving, that's enough. I don't see my life as being continued with that. Again, a very, very individual choice. So please, I'm only using myself as an example. And I think you may know people like that, but it is very, very important that you know what other options are available to you based on your clinical situation. And there's no harm in going to that advanced care planning appointment with your doctor and saying, okay, doc, my blood pressure is really out of control and you've told me I have some heart disease. What do you see down the road for me if I don't take care of myself? They may say, oh, well, don't say, no, I need to know because I want to talk about it. And I will also offer this out, as I do always. You can say to them, look, doc, this crazy lady from my church who was a nurse, who worked for hospice, told me I need to talk to you about this, and I'm fine with that. I would prefer you not give my name out because they can find me, but you can tell them that there was this lady who told you to talk about it because you know what? You deserve that. It's important. Okay, and the advance directive documents, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but we need to know about them. Okay, so you can go to the next one. Okay, so this is my homage to my brother. It's time to move the conversations upstream. My brother is a hydrogeologist, so he's always involved in streams and whatever. And I mean this sincerely. We need to talk about this sooner rather than later. Don't wait for the crisis. And please, there's a slide in here that is not meant for its shock value. I will talk about the reality. Okay, you can change that. So this is all of us, right here. If we had a cup of coffee, I'd want you to sit down and start to chit-chat. The Knights of Columbus, you guys get together all the time. You should sit down and have these discussions. What do you think about? It may not be the most enticing Saturday morning breakfast discussion, but you know what? It's comforting to share those thoughts and wishes among other people in your circumstance, in our age group, about our parents, about our partners, whatever. Okay. So, how do we do this? What are the catalysts that how do you go about talking? I, being a former hospice nurse, talk about it all the time. As I said, my kids are tired of hearing about it, but you know what? I can't do it enough. So, the birth, when there is a birth, if someone in your family has a baby, what a nice opportunity, to just say, well, I need to think about these things again. This was a whole change in my life. Does it change how I feel about things? Because there's a new baby in the family, or because that family has a new baby. It might. Death, obviously, the death of someone, and I will tell you, in our family, we had the death of someone very close to us at a very young age, and I find it an honor to speak about her and use her death as an example for us and being able to make sure people know what we all want. Divorce, fortunately or unfortunately, that's a big issue. If there is a divorce, might not be on your priority list, tops there, but if you divorce someone and that person has been your healthcare proxy, you need to be darn sure that after the divorce, that's still the same person you want. Okay? And you laugh, but believe it or not, doing these things, people are like, oh my gosh, like they had to run home and change their proxy that night. Decline, if you yourself or your loved one has a decline in their health condition, does that change what you're thinking about? Your way of thinking, and sometimes it does. And again, it might be your decline or someone else's. And you'll see that obviously the diagnosis of a serious illness can change the whole framework, your discussion with your doctor, plus how you think about options of care. Someone else's experience. Sometimes this is the biggest way to introduce this without it feeling very personal. A neighbor of ours had a very serious accident, and she wound up on life support, and it was like everybody in our community who had never thought, and I did a presentation like this in our community, everybody said, oh my gosh, how sad, and I knew her daughter personally, and I said, you talked about this, but it was through her very sad experience that we all started talking about it and said, oh, well, I wouldn't want this, I would want that. Those are the kind of things. And again, don't think about it as chit-chatting behind someone's back. Think about it as honoring their life. They went through this experience so that you could learn from it and maybe make some decisions on your own. Articles, books, or movies, we all know there are plenty of those out there. Again, choose decent ones, but if you share a movie with someone that has to do with healthcare, and maybe outcomes and things like that, say, hey, did you see that movie? What do you think about? Lighten it up a little bit. And then a presentation or an event. So here I am, again, use me, say, yeah, this was this lady, she said we should talk about this, so please go ahead and do that. Okay, this is not meant as a scare tactic. Some of you may see this, some of you may not. I have to be very honest with you. It's a gentleman in a hospital bed with a tube everywhere. If that is your choice, that you want everything done, not only are you entitled and should it be respected, you also need to be very specific about the everything. Physicians who are caring for you, everything may not mean the same to them as it does to you. So if you do, you are more than welcome to go ahead, write it down, make sure your proxy knows, go ahead. And this may very well be a circumstance where someone will come around after these treatments are done. However, my experience has been, and I will share it again in honor of the families, I have been at bedsides where family members have been basically hysterically crying. I hope I did the right thing. I wished we had talked about it. I don't know what they would have wanted. That can be avoided for the most part by having these discussions. And this is, again, not a guilt thing. At the moment of crisis, you will do what you believe is best. So please take that with you. But if you can have these discussions before, which is really why I'm here, please do that. Do it inside yourself and do it with those that you love. Okay, next one. So, do that. So Dr. Bomba, who again, like me, talks about death, dying, illness, and what have you, she has a Thanksgiving tradition, which I'm not suggesting you all adopt, because your whole family may just decide to say, we don't want to come to your house for Thanksgiving anymore. But the framework is no talk, no turkey. She happens to have a family full of physicians who are living all over the United States. The only time that whole family gets together is at Thanksgiving. Well, before they sit down for their meal, those who have them pull out their healthcare proxies, they go over it, they make sure the person is the right one, they do it all. Then they go ahead and they have their dinner. Again, I have not adopted her tradition, I talk about it all the time, but again, if there are other opportunities when you are all together, it's important because for all of you, not all your family lives around the corner, and people who might be involved when those decisions have to happen should really know about it. Okay? All right, you can go again. She would appreciate me telling her story. So your wishes should not be kept a secret. And I cannot emphasize that more. The plans for your future can save your loved ones, and this is intellectual, so they're thinking about it, they know, emotional, and I will also add this, and this might not sit well with everybody, but financial burdens. I have been involved with families and with patients themselves and their loved ones who the financial burdens of severe, critical, necessary, maybe not, treatments were very expensive and might in fact have bankrupted their family. And not that that was the sole decision-making factor, but it was important. They needed to talk about it. Should I do this? And of course, there are a lot of other clinical issues that needed to be thought about, but that has to be thought about too. And maybe there's an option. Maybe the most expensive treatment is not what you need. Maybe there's something else that's a little bit different that would be more mild. Or maybe there's a clinical trial that might not cost so much. So those are the kind of options that you need to think about. Okay. So here we are. Who will speak for you? Now we're down to the who's. Okay. So just for all of you, if you currently, and you don't have to raise your hand, I'm not going to embarrass anybody. If you currently have a healthcare proxy, a form, okay, I would ask you to go home, to take it out, and to make sure everything that you have on there is current. Okay? There's no need to change it if it's all valid, but I would bet not one of you has taken it out in the last 6 months. Yay! Did you have an unfortunate incident? Well, good for you. Good for you. Did you just do one? Was it the first? Oh, well, okay. So she felt and please, the rest of you, no shame. I do it annually, and there are important reasons. We'll talk about it. When you saw my bio, which Joe didn't mention because it was a little part of the National Healthcare Decision Day Committee is a national committee. April 15th, okay, here's the pun, death and taxes on tax day, has been recognized as National Healthcare Decision Day. So sort of like when you change the batteries in your smoke alarm, every April 15th, we ask people who don't have a healthcare proxy to start working on it, those who do, to pull it out and take a look at it. And we'll talk about what's the difference. Okay, yes?
You have more than one person?
You have a person who is your proxy and you have an alternate. And we can talk about the discussion that happens there, especially if you have two kids who are going to fight over. No, I'm only kidding. Okay. So if you have not chosen one, and when I started in this position, way back in 2010, believe it or not, doctors were sort of flying by the seat of their pants if people came in, and that's really nasty. Not by this, they made their best decisions that they knew. I should take that back, based on the current situation. But if people did not have a healthcare proxy, the New York State decided to pass a law, and it's called the Family Health Decision Act. This does not mean that you should not pick the person that you've had the discussion with that you want to speak for you. But in the event that you do not have a proxy, this is the order of succession that they will look to answer questions if there's a crucial situation. If you have a court-appointed guardian, so if someone has a developmental disability maybe, or has been declared incompetent, that court-appointed guardian is there. Your spouse, if not legally separated, or your domestic partner, son or daughter, 18 or older. This is where a challenge comes in if you have two of them, and one of them wants to fight that's where the discussions are important, because you need to decide, and we can talk about that a little bit. Your parent, if they are still alive, an adult sibling, and a close friend. Now, if you have 6 siblings, again, having that discussion with all 6 of them over Thanksgiving might really help out in this circumstance, because they could be fighting all over it all. Okay. So how do you choose it? And these are some of the criteria. Choose somebody, and this is sounds like a very silly question. Choose someone you would trust with your life. Because bottom line, that's exactly what this is all about. Someone who understands the responsibilities of the designation and says yes when asked. Story quick. Gentleman comes into hospice, says he wants his healthcare proxy thing witnessed, okay? He's got his brother listed. His brother lives in California, I happen to say. So what does your brother say about this? Oh, I haven't told him. Well, excuse me, his brother's in California, and when heaven forbid something happens, he gets a call and says, your brother John has said you're his healthcare proxy, and it's like, what? So please, don't surprise anyone with that gift. Make sure the person who you're designated says yes. And they know how important it is. Someone who meets the legal age in your state, that's 18 years of age or over. I know some 16-year-old children who are absolutely much more mature than some 18-year-olds, but they have to be 18. Knows and understands what's important to you. That's that whole discussion piece. Okay, they really need to know what's important to you, because this is not their decision. They are basically speaking your decisions. And they may not agree with what you decide, which is why those discussions are so important. They can separate his or her own feelings and wishes from yours. So I have one daughter, I love both of my daughters desperately the same amount, one who is a very concrete person, the other one who is a little bit more soft around the edges, So who do I think would be a little bit better spokesperson? They're both involved in the discussions and they will support one another, but, we really had to think about it and talk about it. And to your surprise, one of them might say, nope, let her do it, And if that's the case, make sure you don't, she's laughing back there, make sure you don't pinpoint somebody like that. If they don't want to do it, please don't bully them into it. Don't say, oh, but you have to. Don't do that. Because the person is able to think clearly in emotional situations, and this is probably the most important because I have seen it happen, can be a strong advocate for you if there is some questionable discussion going on, particularly in the hospital. We've all seen, well, the doctor thinks this and says this. Well, if you know this person does not want that, you got to be a little bit strong to stand back and say, no, this is not what I want. And not like, oh, but you don't want to see that. Well, yes, she does want this. So that person who's going to speak to you needs to be able to stand up to sometimes its opposition. I'd like to believe that doesn't happen. In reality, it does. Okay. Yes. Oh, all right. You got it? Okay, go ahead. Okay. Do you want to wait? Can you, I don't want you to forget it, and we haven't had many. All right, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me through this?
No, but I can hear you.
Yes, you can? Oh, well, whatever.
Yeah.
I was a single parent, and so I discussed these things as the kids grew up. Everybody knew that they were to go to the green folder if something happened.
Good for you.
You should see the green folder now. However,
were you the lady who held up the When I Die folder?
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, I like that.
When another point is
Yes.
that you need to revisit that conversation
Yes, that's, yep.
over time.
Oh, absolutely.
Because an example was I asked a question of a child, and that child said, well, I know what it is, Mom. If you go in the hospital and you're sick, you don't want any antibiotics.
Right.
So,
right.
oh my God, no, that's not what it is.
Absolutely. You're
So
absolutely
you
right.
need to have that discussion more than once.
Well, that's part of that continuum. It should happen absolutely. And it's a great example because, and they didn't understand the first time around and got a chance to give that back to you. Or maybe they did and just interpreted it differently or just felt like you don't want it, so I don't have to worry about that. It is important. And those discussions may have to happen again and again, which is why I said if you have a proxy now, revisit it. Make sure what you have down there is still the same. And revisit it with them. because your own situation may change and your own thoughts about things may change. So I think the other thing that's important is, and you mentioned this, you had it with the children, make sure to the degree possible that everyone who might be involved at the moment of you being critically ill, death and dying, seriously ill, or if there's a what if, anybody who might be involved there hears the discussions that you have, which is why Dr. Bomba's Thanksgiving thing worked so well, because you don't want Uncle John or Aunt Nancy, who haven't seen you in 30 years, hear that you're sick and in the hospital, coming in, never heard any of these discussions, and even though you have a healthcare proxy, creating mayhem saying, she's my sister, she would never want that. And unfortunately, sometimes that happens. Now, I would be misinforming you if I said that a healthcare proxy is never without challenge. Sometimes that happens. There is a safeguard, there is a legal channel, but there is also something in hospitals particularly called ethics committees. So if there's a family discussion or disruption about what's going on, even as far as documentation is concerned, you can ask for an ethics committee meeting, and staff from the hospital, those who are treating your loved one or whomever, will be involved in that and that discussion. Every hospital has an ethics committee, and they will make recommendations to you. Sometimes you just need it for a little moral support, because everything that's going on is so intimidating, but it's an option for you to look into. Okay, but I do agree, revisiting that discussion for their benefit as well as yours, if your decisions change, is very important. Okay, so who should complete a healthcare proxy? Everyone 18 years of age or over. Again, I get a lot of pushback on this, and again, when I was working, one of the circumstances, and a very sad one, was there was a I believe he was 21-year-old young man in the police academy who, heaven forbid, he was shot in some sort of an altercation in Albany and wound up on life support. And his family needed to make a decision. Now, as a parent, as a guardian, as anything, making a choice like that for a child is probably one of the hardest things you'd have to do. But they had had discussions with him, mainly because of, I believe, the choice that he had for his future. They were able to, and again, I'm not going to say easily decide, but they had a basis for the decisions. They also knew about trials. Well, we'll trial that respirator for so long, and if he doesn't improve, or we'll remove it, and if this happens, we'll do the next step. So those are important things. So I also say, and again, I have two daughters who are well past the college age, but heaven help me, college students are sometimes very flip, and particularly with ETOH and other things, and they do sometimes silly things when they're drinking or when they're out carousing or what have you, and accidents happen, and some of them can be very serious, and you as a parent or a grandparent get a call that they're in ICU and whatever. It's very difficult, very, very difficult. And I apologize, I see somebody, please know, it is only with the greatest of respect, but this is how important this is. It just is that important. So when should you complete it? If you haven't already, you should have done it yesterday, and I mean that sincerely. How do you do it? I will give you forms tonight. What I suggest is, and this is again hard, that you get a quiet time. You need at least a couple of hours, 2 hours, no interruptions, nothing going on. Sit down, go through the forms step by step. It's a page and a half, literally. You do not need an attorney. What you do need are 2 people over the age of 18 who are not your proxy or your alternate, because you can choose those 2, to witness your signature. They are witnessing your signature. Those 2 are not witnessing your discussions. They are just witnessing that you signed that form. And they can see that this is the person you assigned as your proxy. Okay, go ahead, John. Who should have copies? You need 1, possibly 3. Don't do so many that if you change it, you need to go collect all the originals seriously, because we've had people, and even going into the hospitals, people think they have the most recent one, and there's another one that's been made out. And they didn't tell their first agent, so 2 agents show up. It's like, we can avoid that. If you have 2 copies yourself, you have one, do not keep it in a safe deposit box, because guess what? Nobody can get it then. Keep it in a top dresser drawer or somewhere where people who love you would know that it is. You give a copy to your agent and possibly to your alternate, okay? You can give it to your healthcare providers. And I say this again with tongue in cheek, please, when you give it to them, make sure they scan it into your file, that it just doesn't get lost on a pile of papers. Most of them today have all electronic files, so they go in there. And again, when the doctor asks you, do you have one, say, yes, I have a healthcare proxy. Here it is. Show it to them, give it to them. You can give them a copy, you can have them scan it and give it back to you, but make sure that it's in there. Unfortunately, today, chances of you seeing your own doctor in the hospital is probably nil. You will probably see 10 other doctors that you never saw before. But if that copy of your proxy is in your file, because of the electronic ability, they will be able to see that. Again, if your proxy or your agent has a copy, they can always bring it too. If you should wind up in the hospital and they ask, do you have a healthcare proxy? They don't have one in your file and you don't see that, say, I will have someone bring it in. Okay. Very often, if it's an emergent situation, they will say, you have to sign another one. You got to be careful with that, because then that one becomes the most recent. So just, among everything else, when you show up going into the emergency room and possibly into surgery, you have to remember that. But try to know that that's a possibility, because then that is the most recent copy of your proxy. Okay? Okay. And you can include other family members and your attorney. Most attorneys today will do, again, I'm not being disparaging, I have two lawyers in my family. Most attorneys will bundle this. They'll do your financial power of attorney, your living will, and a healthcare proxy all in one thing and give you one charge for it, okay? If you do not have that bundle, you can give your healthcare proxy that you made out without an attorney to him to keep and to safeguard. That is a legal document, okay? Your living will, and I'm not going to, there's a whole nother presentation I could spend doing with you deciding between the two of them, but living will right now in New York State really is sort of considered clear and convincing evidence of the discussion and the decisions you have made with your healthcare proxy. So you can have a living will that details a little bit more than what you would put down on your healthcare proxy form. And when I give you those forms, I'll show it to you so that you know. But the bottom line is your lawyer can have one. Again, just remember and write down on your own proxy form who you gave copies to. So in the event that you change it, you go to all of them and get it back, okay? Because you don't want them to have old copies that are no longer valid. Okay, go ahead, John. How are we doing? Oh, we're not doing bad. Okay. When should you re-examine your advance directives? Again, I like April 15th. You can choose any day you want. You can choose your birthday. You can choose whenever. But please, at least once a year, just take it out and look at it. See that everything is right. I will be honest with you. We've had people hand us, when I was working for hospice, a form where the person they appointed had died. When somebody dies, it's not the first thing you think about to take them off your proxy list, but it happens. And luckily there was an alternate listed there. Upon the death of a loved one, okay, if you experience a major life event, birth, death, adoption, marriage, divorce, serious illness, or that, again, pull it out. Diagnosed with a serious illness, yes, or the decline in a health status. So if any big changes happen in your life, you need to use that document as well as a barometer of what's going on from here forward. Because that's your life inside of that document and your decisions. And that major life event may change some of the decisions you've had in that discussion, okay? When can you change it? Go ahead, you can go to the next one. Anytime that you wish. And just again, be sure to notify all of the parties who are involved. Next one, John, please. Why complete it? These are sort of fancy words, but it enhances autonomy and your self-determination. It's you making these decisions. You have control of your life as long as you are able to make those decisions. And the person that you choose should be speaking your words on your behalf, not the words they think they want to see for your care, okay? It reflects the value of your life. You know, literally, based on those values that you had, that's what those discussions are all about. What do you value in life? So that your proxy knows what's important to you. It helps you retain some degree of control. As I said, it's the maximum degree, it's the best tool we have. I will not stand up here and say it can't be challenged, because we all know everything can be challenged in one way or another. But we're doing the best we can with what we have here. This is a legal document. It identifies your quality of life choices, yours, what you consider to be quality of life. It preserves your dignity. You know, this is what I want going forward from here. It identifies that spokesperson, the person who will speak on your behalf. It avoids unwanted or will affirm your desire for treatments, whatever they be. It can avoid the burdensome ones or can say, yes, they want that in the event that it will make a difference. It affirms some of your religious beliefs, and sometimes those are very important. If you think those, the religious tenets or the spirituality of the person who is going to be speaking for you understands how important that is for you, this document is really critical. And it lessens the burdens on your family. And as I said before, almost beyond any other than 100% of the patients and families that I've spoken to, the burden on the family is something that the patients worry about, whether they're facing an illness they're going to recover from or a terminal illness. They're more worried about their loved ones than they are themselves. Okay, next one, John. So again, as much as we can, normalize the conversation. Blame me, you know, please don't hesitate. Think about yourself first, though. Think about the things we threw out there. Think about what's important to you. And again, you may not have all the answers right now. This may take a while, but you got to begin somewhere, and this is a place to begin. Okay. And again, I can't say this more. It really is a gift of love for those that you love. You know, you at that point have made decisions. You're facing what you are facing. Your loved ones are outside of that sphere, but very much concerned with you. And it really is a gift of love to share that with them and to relieve them of that potential burden of having to make decisions when they really didn't know. Okay? I think that's it. I managed it in an hour after not doing it for 6 years. We'll take questions if you have any. If you don't have any now, we'll hang around. I do have some handouts that I will give you. Questions right now? No? Okay. Sure, go ahead. Yep.
You talked about the financial burden.
Yes.
Wait a second.
Oh, okay. Oh, you're going to get it. Yeah. Yep.
You talked about the financial burden.
Yes.
Well, you know, you're involved with Medicaid, Medicare, all that stuff, and what happens? I mean,
That depends very much, it's an individual, on what your insurances, whatever they may be, will cover. And that's why I happened to mention clinical studies, usually clinical trials, because it's not a founded treatment yet. There is breaks in the cost, or it's a little less expensive. Some of them, it may be a choice. Your insurance may or may not cover it, you know, and you need to know that, God bless you, before you go into this. So that's why making yourself aware of what's in the future and how much it may cost. And again, I would like to hope and pray that finances would not be the sole decision maker in that, but it does come into the picture. It really does. Go ahead.
but even with,
Some people don't understand what a clinical trial is or
Okay.
how you get one.
Okay. Did you hear that? Some people don't understand what a clinical trial is. In just about every disease entity, mostly associated with cancer diseases though, there are new drugs that are coming out all the time, and clinical trials are those stages before the Federal Drug Administration approves a drug for treatment, so that, and I don't like, you are a client of this trial and you are put involved. Sometimes you get the actual drug, sometimes you get what they call a placebo, a fake one that mimics it, and then they study those individuals based on the results. Those, if you explore that, those other options you need to explore, those are usually offered through like the larger healthcare institutions like Dana-Farber, Memorial Sloan Kettering. Albany Med has them too. There are also pulmonary clinical trials for people who have pulmonary disease, heart disease. But if you have a serious illness, you should talk with your physician about it. If you think that clinical, just say, what about clinical trials? Are there any in the area? And then once you find out about them, then you need to go to that source and say, so what's involved in this? Not everybody is eligible for a clinical trial. Sometimes you have to have had a certain number of medicines before that haven't worked. Sometimes you have to have a certain degree of, I hate to say this, disease before you are eligible. Okay, but it's worth looking into a clinical trial. But remember, those are not proven efficacy medications. So they're trying to get them on board. It's not like they're going to give you something that's poisonous, but they don't have the full degree of data following it all the way down. And they'll tell you, you sign that saying you don't know what the outcomes will be. Yes?
And some clinical trials.
Yep, hang on, he's bringing the mic over. I keep forgetting you're taping this there.
Some clinical trials, there are more than one trial on the same
Yes.
thing, so that you want to know, is this the first trial that has ever been done on this?
Yes.
Or is this like the 5th trial?
Yes.
Because they've learned a lot.
Yes, yes. And there are levels in the trials too. Each trial you can have a level 1, a level 2. They move along because the FDA requires data being collected. So it may be an option, it may not be, but you know what? It's worth looking into. So. Any other questions now? Please, don't feel the need. I'll be here. I'm going to give out some information. I am going to ask you, only because it's been 6 years since I've done this, and please be honest, I always like to have an evaluation form. I hope this is not the last time after 6 years, because I'd like to keep doing these. I think it's that important. But you can just circle things. You don't have to put your name on it. You can put down things you wish were discussed tonight. I would also let you know, this is not the only discussion. There is a whole discussion on hospice care. What the heck is hospice care? That's a whole different discussion, a whole different presentation. There's a whole presentation on palliative care. People have heard about that. That's a whole nother discussion. So, if there are things that you'd want to hear about, if I'm capable of doing it, I'm more than willing to do it. If I can find someone in my colleague network, I will, certainly do that. But I will give you, and I have some pencils, and I also have, where's my guy? Come here, my guy. If you have your own pen, please use it. I have pencils. This is the evaluation form. You don't have to put your name on it. You can put suggestions on the back, whatever. The advanced care planning resources, these tools, if you are internet savvy, I have gone through these very carefully. They are all, oddly enough, John had asked me to do this back in December, and I had this all prepared for December, and it was just a big mix-up. And one of the resources on the first sheet has actually the website closed down. So I was really glad I looked, and it was Dr. Bamba, who retired. She ran that website, so that is no longer on here. But all of these are very valid. You can look them up. And certainly, I have healthcare proxy forms here for you. There's 2 there. I also have a copy of, if there are extras here, you can just leave them on the table. Congratulations, you. I'm proud of you.
I work for New York State Office of Aging and Long-Term Care.
Yay, team. Good for you. Oh, God. God bless you. Too much.
Okay, so this will end the advanced care planning presentation. Thank you.